Chapter 1. The morning was as quiet as any that Adam could remember. It was as if all the mountain animals were still asleep, either that or hidden away, unseen and watching. For the past hour since Adam had left the cabin near Jenny Creek, not one single animal had crossed his path. Other than the crunching of the big red pup's feet on the pine needles in front of him, Adam could not hear a sound. A clump of aspen stood on the uphill slope near the path where they walked. Adam stopped, watching them. Mother had told him once that the aspen was the kind of tree Jesus carried to his crucifixion. In the old days, she'd said, the aspen was tall and straight. After Jesus died, God made the tree small and crooked. And if you look real close, you'll notice how the leaves never stop their moving, like they're trying to shake themselves loose from the cursed tree. Adam frowned and bent for a closer look at the leaves. There wasn't the slightest breath of wind, yet the little heart-shaped leaves jiggled, swaying from side to side. When Adam looked up again, the red pup was a good ways ahead of him. He trotted after the dog, leaping lightly on legs well accustomed to the rocky mountain trails. It had been light for almost 3 hours, but in the past few minutes the sun had climbed over the high peaks that surrounded the Whiskey Basin and spread its bright rays through the branches of the tall pines that stood on the upper slopes. Adam stopped again as he crossed a clearing and felt the warm sun on his back. Even in the summer, the mountain air was crisp. It felt good to stand in the sun and breathe in the pine-scented air in great gulps. He closed his eyes, enjoying the smell. Suddenly, the quiet seemed to close in on him. An almost haunting silence. Adam's eyes popped open. He held his breath and listened. There was nothing but silence, and the silence made him shaky. "What's wrong with you?" he said to himself. He tried to laugh the scary feeling out of the pit of his stomach. "You're acting like a little kid. There isn't anything to get scared about. It's always quiet up here in the mountains." But another voice inside laughed back and said, "Yeah, but it's never this quiet." He shook his head. "I wish that old pup would stay closer," he mused. He looked around for the dog, but the red pup was no place in sight. "Darn worthless hound anyway," he muttered. "He's supposed to be sticking with me, not playing hide and seek." Adam raced on in the direction he'd last seen the dog. As he ran, he listened, trying to hear the clumsy, long-legged plodding of the pup's feet on the forest floor. There was nothing but quiet. The trail led down through a cut between rugged granite shoulders of rock. It followed a dry creek bed where the walls of the canyon seemed to close in. A few yards beyond the narrow gap, the stream opened into a larger, rounded flat where the pines grew close together. Their spiny limbs all but blocked out the bright rays of the early morning summer sun. It was a dark, shadowy place, unfamiliar to Adam, who thought he had explored almost every foot of the mountains and valleys around his family's log cabin. He frowned, not remembering being here before. Then he got to wondering just exactly how long he'd been gone from home and how many miles he had traveled before finding himself lost. Suddenly, the harsh, shrill rasping of the red pup's voice shattered the stillness. Adam's breath caught in his throat. The dog barked again, a wolf-like howl that bounced from the walls of the nearby mountains. Adam's heart stopped beating when the brush exploded only a few feet in front of him. Some huge animal burst into the open trail. It was hard to see in the shadows. Adam squinted, not recognizing its form. The animal froze, turning to look at him. Then, the tail flipping from side to side, it whirled and disappeared down the path. Adam made a gulping sound in his throat when he swallowed. He didn't even have time to catch his breath before the brush exploded again. He jerked, startled by the noise. The red pup lumbered through the branches of tangled brush, almost falling over his oversized puppy feet. Adam watched as he shook himself, then set his nose to the ground. He made a popping sound as he sniffed the trail. Then, head held high, he let out one of those ragged, raging yelps and took off helter-skelter on the trail of the animal. Everything happened so fast. Adam didn't have time to think about what was going on, and before he could decide what to do, his feet had already decided for him. Without really knowing it, he was running after the big red pup and yelling at the top of his lungs, "Get it, boy, tree it, run it down." Clumsy and young as the pup was, he was still a good runner. Adam had just started following, yet the dog's voice was already far in the distance. Whatever that pup was trailing, it was sticking to the path. Adam could hear the dogs yelping, and he knew from the sound that the pup was closing in on something fast. His trail cry came quicker, the yelps closer and closer together, more excited. Adam's heart was pumping faster and faster as the pup's voice grew louder, closer. Then, the sound of the dog's voice changed tone. Adam smiled to himself as he ran. "You got it treed, that a boy." Adam was panting when he rounded a huge boulder and found the red pup. Just as he expected, the pup was standing beneath a large pine, yelping and barking for all he was worth. He would leap into the air, dig at the tree with his paws like he was trying to climb it, then plop down on the ground again. Adam raced to his dog and crouched down so he could see through the branches. Then he frowned. There was nothing there. The big pine was empty. Not even a bird rested on the branches. Still, the red pup kept bouncing at the tree, yelping and barking in that ragged trail voice. Adam looked at the dog and shook his head. "You knothead," he scolded. "There's nothing up there. You're barking up the wrong tree." The pup only ignored him and kept right on yelping. Adam reached out and caught him by the back of the neck. He held him until the pup calmed down a little. Then, bracing his hand under the dog's chin, he raised his head so he could look up at the tree. "See?" he said. "Nothing." The red pup perked his fuzzy ears and tilted his head to the side. Puzzled, he sniffed the tree again. He let out a half-hearted yelp, then looked at Adam as if to say, "What did you do with that thing I was chasing?" "Dumb dog," Adam teased. "You ought to know." The scream from behind them stopped the words in Adam's throat. He wheeled around, eyes wide, mouth open. In the tall pine just behind them, he found what the pup had been trailing. Halfway up the tree, one of the branches bowed under the weight of a huge mountain lion. The cat was enormous. She was golden brown, the color of the setting sun on the mountains. She had eyes that sparkled the shiny gold color of the tiny rocks Adam found along Jenny Creek, and bared teeth the color of the snows on top of the mountain peaks. The cat stood, crouched on rippling muscles, her powerful legs tensed, ready to spring with the strength and speed of one of the steel traps Adam's stepdad used on his trap line. The cat screamed again, a scream that set the hair bristling along Adam's neck and made the shivers run up and down his spine. Then, baring her teeth, the cat made a threatening hiss and flipped her tail from side to side. Adam was on his feet in an instant, only he was frozen to the spot where he stood. The pup yapped a couple of times and started for the tree. Instantly, Adam dropped to one knee and caught him. The red dog started wagging his tail. He wagged it so hard that his back end started wagging, and that spread to the rest of him. Before Adam knew it, the pup was wagging all over. Everything from his long bushy tail to his floppy ears started wiggling. He was squirming so hard, Adam had to wrap his other arm around him just to hold him. Again, the cat snarled, only this time it was more like she was laughing at them than threatening them. The pup yapped a couple of times. He made a lunge toward the tree, then another. Adam looked down at him, making sure his hold was secure. When he looked back toward the tree, the cat was gone. There was nothing in the pine except the swaying branch where she had crouched only a second or two before. Adam snapped his head around from one side to the other, searching for her, but there wasn't a sign of where she had gone, not a single sound of her padded feet on the forest floor. The pup was still excited and wiggling. Then he too realized there was nothing left in the tree but an empty branch. Adam blew a breath up his forehead. "That's enough tracking for one day, pup," he sighed. "This makes 3 times you've been on the trail of that old cat. Only this time we got too close for comfort. I think we best go home." Only as Adam stood up, he didn't know exactly where the house was. He started back to the trail, and a few yards after he passed through the narrow canyon that had brought them into the small valley, he began to recognize his surroundings. He smiled. The wind had picked up now. It brought a slight chill from the high mountains, making the aspens rattle and the life come back to the forest. Birds chattered in the trees, and a few times Adam spotted some gray squirrels scampering among the branches of some pines. The red pup stayed close at his heels. Adam reached back and patted him on the head. "I think we best head for the house," he said. Then to himself he added, "Trouble is, it's the last place I want to be right now."